The sun rose slowly over the wide, empty desert, casting long golden rays across the dusty ranch. The air was still, except for the soft rustle of dry grass and the distant cry of a lone hawk. The ranch stretched for miles, quiet and untouched by the busy towns far away. On this ranch lived a man who had long ago grown used to silence. He was not a young man, but he had the strength and resilience of someone who had spent his life working under the harsh sun, bending to the demands of the land and animals he cared for. He lived alone, with only his cattle, a few horses, and the occasional coyote or rabbit to break the silence. Most of his neighbors were miles away, and he had learned to value solitude as a friend, even though sometimes it felt more like a companion of loneliness. The rancher had a life full of routine. He would wake with the first light, feed the animals, mend fences, and check on the fields. Every action was methodical, repeated day after day, with little variation except for the changing of the seasons. He had once been married, long ago, but his wife had passed, leaving a quiet house and an empty heart. The laughter of children, the warmth of shared evenings, the comfort of another human presence, all of that was now only a memory. The rancher had tried to fill the gaps with work, keeping busy so the emptiness would not overwhelm him. But some evenings, as the sun sank behind the distant hills, he felt the weight of silence more than ever. It was on one of those quiet mornings, with the soft wind moving through the sagebrush, that he first noticed them. At the far edge of his property, near the dry riverbed where the earth cracked in the summer heat, two figures appeared. They were small, slight, and moved carefully, almost as if they were afraid of being seen. At first, the rancher thought he was imagining it, a trick of the sunlight or the heat rising from the ground, but as he squinted, he realized they were two young girls, perhaps no more than 12 or 13 years old, dressed in simple, worn clothing that hinted at long travel and hardship. Their hair was dark, flowing, and slightly tangled, and their eyes, wide and wary, met his for a moment before darting away. For a moment, the rancher's heart leapt with surprise and caution. Who were these girls? Why were they so far from town? And why were they standing at the edge of his land, so close yet so hesitant to approach? He could feel a mixture of fear and curiosity rising inside him. The desert was a place of danger, especially for those traveling alone. But there was something in their eyes, a quiet strength, a bravery that went beyond their years that made him pause. He called out softly, his voice roughened by years of talking mostly to animals. "Hello? Can I help you?" The girls froze, exchanging a quick glance before one of them, slightly taller than the other, stepped forward. She spoke slowly, carefully, as if weighing every word. "Please, sir, may we stay?" Her voice was soft, but there was a firmness underneath it, a determination not to be turned away. The rancher studied them for a long moment. Their clothes were dusty, their faces smudged with dirt, but they carried themselves with dignity. There was no one else around for miles, and the desert could be merciless. "Stay." "Where?" the rancher asked, still cautious. "Here, with you," the girl replied. "We have nowhere else to go. Please, accept us." The words caught the rancher off guard. He had expected fear, perhaps anger, or even begging. But these girls were asking, almost pleading, with a quiet politeness that felt strange in such a harsh place. Something in him softened. He knew what it was like to be alone, to have no one to turn to, no one to care whether you were safe or not. And now, here were two young lives, seeking shelter in his quiet, empty world. He gestured toward the porch. "Well, come in then. But stay close. You don't wander around out here. It's not safe." The girls nodded quickly, almost in relief, and followed him inside. Their movements were careful, graceful, as if they had been trained to be invisible to the world. Inside, the rancher's house was simple: a kitchen with a wood stove, a small living room with worn chairs, and a few personal touches that hinted at the life he had once shared with someone else. The girls looked around with curiosity, taking in the small space, but they said nothing. Once they were seated, the taller girl spoke again. "Thank you, sir. We didn't know where else to go. There is someone following us." Her voice trembled slightly, and the rancher noticed a scar running down her forearm. Faint, but visible. It was a mark of pain, of struggle, and it made his heart tighten. "Someone following you?" he asked, leaning closer, his mind racing with questions. "What happened?" The girl hesitated, glancing at her companion, who nodded slightly, encouraging her to speak. We had to leave our home," she said. "There were people who wanted to hurt us." The scar. She lifted her arm just enough for him to see it clearly. "It is from them. From when they tried to take us." The rancher swallowed hard. The desert, for all its beauty and peace, was also a place of danger, and he had heard stories of children and families being threatened by those with cruel intentions. But to see it here, in front of him, in the eyes of two young girls, made it real in a way that no story ever could. His mind raced. What could he do? They were strangers, and yet he felt an immediate responsibility. They were alone, scared, and in need of protection. "I see," he said finally, his voice firm but gentle. "You'll be safe here, as long as you stay close to me. I can't promise what's out there, but here, inside, you'll be safe." The girls' faces brightened slightly, relief softening the lines of fear that had been etched there by weeks, perhaps months, of travel and hiding. As the morning sun climbed higher in the sky, the rancher prepared a simple meal of bread, cheese, and water. The girls ate slowly, politely, and the taller one finally spoke again, her voice more steady. We are grateful. We didn't know anyone would help us." The rancher shook his head. "It's just right to help. You didn't ask for what happened, and it's not your fault. Nobody should face the desert alone. Not girls your age." There was a pause, then a soft question. "Where are you from?" The girls exchanged glances, hesitant to answer. We're from the Apache lands," the shorter girl said quietly. "But we had to leave. There is no one now. No safe place." The rancher nodded slowly, thinking of the long histories he had learned about the Apache people, the struggles they had faced, and the challenges of surviving in a world that often seemed to forget them. These girls were a living reminder of that resilience, and now, somehow, they had appeared on his quiet, lonely ranch, asking for shelter. As the day passed, the rancher watched them carefully. They were shy, but clever and observant, noticing the details of the house, the animals, and the land. They asked questions. Not many, but enough to show they were curious and willing to learn. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, the air of fear that had hung around them began to ease. The rancher felt something stirring in him, a warmth he had not felt in years. Perhaps it was hope, or perhaps it was the simple joy of seeing life and courage in young faces again. By evening, the sun had dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with shades of pink, orange, and purple. The desert was quiet once more, but it felt different to the rancher. No longer was it a place of solitude and emptiness. Now, it held the presence of two young lives, full of strength and fear and hope. The rancher realized that life, even in the harshest places, could surprise him. These girls had entered his world, and with them came not only their past struggles but also the chance for connection, for purpose, for a family of sorts in the middle of the wide, lonely desert. And as night fell, the girls slept for the first time in days without fear. The rancher sitting nearby, keeping watch. He could still see the scar, a quiet reminder of what they had endured. But he also saw the bravery and trust shining in their eyes. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new questions, and perhaps even danger. But for now, there was peace. And in that quiet desert night, the lonely rancher felt a small but growing sense of wonder, knowing that the arrival of these two Apache girls would change his life forever. The next morning, the sun rose slowly, casting warm light over the ranch and waking the sleepy land with a soft golden glow. The air was fresh with the scent of dry grass and dust, and the rancher moved around the kitchen, preparing breakfast. The two girls were already awake, sitting quietly at the small wooden table, watching him as he worked. There was a nervous energy about them, a mix of curiosity and caution, as if they were testing this new place to see if it was truly safe. The taller girl spoke first. "Sir, thank you again for letting us stay. We have nothing else." Her words were soft but carried the weight of their long journey. The rancher nodded without looking up from the frying pan. "It's all right. You're safe here for now. Eat first, then we'll see what comes next." Breakfast was simple but filling: eggs, bread, and a bit of cheese. The girls ate slowly, as if savoring not just the food, but the comfort of being in a place where no one wanted to harm them. They spoke little, but every now and then, one of them would ask a small question about the ranch or the animals. The rancher answered patiently, realizing that curiosity was a sign of hope, of trust beginning to grow. After breakfast, the rancher took them outside. He wanted to show them the ranch, to let them understand the land and how to move safely. The girls followed quietly, their eyes wide as they took in the vast open spaces. Horses grazed nearby, cattle wandered slowly, and the wind whispered through the sagebrush. For a moment, it seemed like a world apart from the dangers they had fled. "You must stay close," the rancher said. "This land is big, and you can easily get lost. And there are dangers, snakes, wild animals, even people who might wander by. Stick together and listen to me, and you'll be all right." The girls nodded quickly, their faces serious. It was clear that they had learned to survive in difficult situations, to read danger before it arrived. As they walked among the animals, the taller girl finally asked a question she had been holding back. "Sir, can we tell you about the scar?" She lifted her arm slightly, showing the faded mark again. It's from when they tried to take us, from people who didn't want us safe. We ran away, and it hurt, but we had to survive." Her voice trembled slightly, but she did not break her gaze from the rancher. The rancher's heart tightened. He had seen scars before on animals, on himself. But there was something different about this. It was not just a wound. It was a story, a memory of fear, and a mark of courage. "I see," he said quietly. It looks painful, but you survived. That is what matters." The shorter girl spoke then, softly. We are always careful now. We don't want trouble. We just want to be safe." She looked down at the ground, her fingers fidgeting with a small piece of straw she had picked up. The rancher smiled faintly. "You are safe here. As long as you follow my rules and stay close, no one can hurt you while you're with me." The morning passed slowly, the sun climbing higher and the land warming under its touch. The rancher showed them how to feed the animals, how to carry water without spilling it, and how to move quietly so the horses would not be startled. The girls were quick learners, observing everything carefully and asking questions when they did not understand. Their intelligence and adaptability impressed the rancher, and he found himself enjoying their company more than he had imagined. By midday, they returned to the house for a simple lunch of bread and cheese. The girls ate quietly, but the taller one could not help but glance at the rancher occasionally, as if testing him, trying to see if he could be trusted completely. The scar on her arm was always visible, a silent reminder of their past. But now it seemed less like a mark of danger, and more like a symbol of their survival. After lunch, the girls shared small pieces of their story. They spoke cautiously, careful not to reveal too much at once. They had lived in a small Apache community, but trouble had found them there. A group of men, greedy and cruel, had wanted to take them away, and in the struggle, the taller girl had received the scar. They had run for days, hiding in forests and deserts, avoiding towns and roads, until they finally found the rancher's land. The rancher listened quietly, nodding as they spoke. He did not interrupt, though his mind raced. He had heard stories of conflicts and danger, but to hear it from these young girls, to see the fear and courage in their eyes, made it all real. He felt a deep sense of responsibility, as if their safety now rested on him alone. As the afternoon sun began to lower in the sky, the girls helped the rancher with chores. They learned to carry water from the well, to feed the chickens, and even to mend small fences. They were clumsy at first, but eager to learn, and the rancher's patient guidance helped them gain confidence. Each small success brought smiles and laughter, small but precious sounds in a house that had been quiet for so long. But even as the girls began to relax, there was a tension in the air. The taller girl kept glancing toward the edge of the property, her eyes scanning the distant hills. They might be coming," she whispered once, almost to herself. The rancher looked toward the horizon, but there was nothing in sight. Still, he understood. Danger could be near or far, but with children involved, it was never far from the mind. He sat them down that evening as the sun dipped below the hills, painting the sky with deep reds and purples. "Listen," he said gently. "I don't know exactly who is after you, but I know this. While you are here, you will be safe. I will protect you, but you must trust me and follow my instructions. Can you do that?" The girls nodded, their faces solemn. It was a promise, a bond being formed between them and the man who had opened his home. That night, the rancher prepared the house for any eventuality. He secured doors and windows, checked on the animals, and even set small alarms, simple arrangements with string and tin that would make noise if anyone tried to enter. It was not much, but it was all he could do with the tools he had. The girls watched, learning quietly, absorbing every lesson about safety and caution. As they finally settled down to sleep, the rancher noticed the scar again. It was faint in the dim light, but he could see it clearly. It told a story of struggle, courage, and survival. And he realized something important. The girls were not helpless. They had survived far worse than he could imagine, and now they were here, ready to learn, ready to trust, and perhaps ready to find a new life. Outside, the desert was silent, as it always was at night. The wind whispered through the dry grass, and the stars shone brightly over the wide, empty land. For the first time in years, the rancher felt a sense of purpose beyond routine and survival. He was no longer alone in his world. He had 2 young lives to care for, to guide, and to protect. And though danger still lingered somewhere beyond the hills, he knew that together, they had a chance to face it. In the quiet hours of the night, he thought about the day ahead. There would be more lessons, more work, and perhaps challenges that would test their courage. But for now, there was peace. The girls slept soundly, their trust in him growing with each passing hour. And the rancher, once lonely and resigned to silence, felt the first stirrings of hope, knowing that the arrival of these 2 Apache girls had begun to change everything in his life. By morning, the bond between them had strengthened, silent but undeniable. The girls had begun to see the rancher not just as a stranger, but as a protector, someone they could rely on. And the rancher, in turn, had begun to see in them not just children in need, but brave, intelligent young people whose presence had breathed life into his quiet, lonely world. As the sun rose, painting the ranch with warm light once again, the rancher knew that life on the ranch would never be the same. The girls' past, their scar, and their courage would shape the days to come. And though he did not yet know what challenges lay ahead, he was ready to face them, because he was no longer alone. Air was warm, carrying the faint scent of wild grass and the faint, earthy smell of animals. The rancher walked among the fields, checking fences and inspecting the water troughs. The 2 girls followed, their steps careful but steady. They had grown more comfortable with the ranch, but the shadow of fear still lingered in their eyes, a quiet reminder of the dangers they had fled. "You've learned quickly," the rancher said, watching the taller girl guide a small horse back into the stable. "You're careful, and you pay attention. That will keep you safe." The girl nodded, a small smile crossing her face. It was rare for her to smile so freely. But the warmth of the ranch and the kindness of the man had begun to ease her fear. The shorter girl looked up at him, eyes bright with curiosity. "Sir, can we learn more about the land? About survival?" The rancher paused for a moment, considering. The girls had already learned much: how to feed animals, carry water, and move quietly without startling the horses, but there was more to surviving in the desert than chores and routine. "All right," he said finally. "You'll need to know how to read the land, how to watch for signs of danger, and how to protect yourselves. It's not just about work. It's about staying alive when no one else is around to help." The girls listened intently as the rancher taught them how to recognize the tracks of animals, how to notice subtle changes in the wind, and how to understand the signs of approaching storms. They were quick learners, their minds sharp and attentive, absorbing every lesson with quiet determination. The taller girl occasionally touched the scar on her arm, a silent reminder of the struggle they had survived. But it no longer seemed to carry the same sharp edge of fear. By midday, the rancher had introduced them to the small routines that kept the ranch running smoothly. They collected eggs from the chickens, carried hay to the horses, and helped mend small sections of broken fence. It was hard work, but the girls approached it with quiet pride. They were learning not just survival, but also independence, a skill that would serve them well in the days ahead. Yet, even as the day progressed, a sense of unease lingered. The taller girl often paused, glancing toward the distant hills that bordered the ranch. There were moments when she would stiffen, listening intently to the soft rustle of the wind through the grass, as if she could hear something others could not. The rancher noticed, but he did not speak immediately. He understood that fear was not something to be scolded or dismissed. It had to be acknowledged and respected. Late that afternoon, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky with shades of gold and orange, the taller girl spoke. "Sir, I think they might be closer now. I heard something last night, footsteps, far away but moving closer. They are searching." Her voice was quiet, but there was a firmness to it that commanded attention. The rancher nodded gravely. He had known this moment would come, but he had hoped to delay it, to give the girls more time to adjust to safety. "Do you know who they are?" he asked, his voice calm but serious. They are men from the town where we lived. They want us to return, or to take something from us. I do not know what exactly, but they are dangerous." The shorter girl shivered slightly but did not speak further. The rancher placed a hand on each of their shoulders, steadying them. "Then, we will make sure you are ready. You've learned to survive the land, but now you must also learn to protect yourselves in other ways. Together, we can face this." The rancher spent the rest of the afternoon teaching them how to recognize the sounds of someone approaching, how to move silently, and how to use the terrain to their advantage. He emphasized calmness, patience, and observation, qualities that were more important than strength or speed. The girls practiced quietly, their movements careful, their focus sharp. They were learning not just how to hide, but how to remain aware, how to anticipate danger before it arrived. As evening fell, the rancher and the girls prepared for night. He secured the house, making sure doors were locked, windows checked, and simple alarms set with string and tin that would clatter loudly if disturbed. The girls helped, learning each precaution as though it were a ritual passed down from generations of survival. Once everything was in place, they sat together in the dim light of the small house, sharing a simple meal and talking quietly. "I never thought I'd have a home like this," the taller girl said softly, staring at the floor. "Somewhere I feel safe." "Thank you, sir." The rancher nodded, feeling a warmth in his chest he had not experienced in years. "It is nothing but what is right. You deserve safety and kindness. That is all anyone should ask for." The night was quiet, but the rancher knew it was fragile. The desert, for all its beauty, could be unforgiving. Yet he felt a new sense of purpose, a determination that he would not allow these girls to face danger alone. He watched them sleep, their breathing slow and even, the scar on the taller girl's arm catching a soft glimmer of moonlight. It was a reminder of the past, yes, but also a mark of survival, courage, and resilience. The next morning, the tension was stronger. The girls were more alert, their eyes constantly scanning the horizon, their ears listening to every sound. The rancher had taught them to notice even the smallest changes, the shift in the wind, the sudden silence of birds, the faint crunch of footsteps on dry ground. He could see that they were learning quickly. But he also knew that fear could be exhausting. He needed to balance caution with reassurance. "You are ready," he said gently, as they practiced moving quietly through the field. "You may be scared, but you are brave. You have survived worse than this. Trust in yourselves, and trust in what you have learned." The girls nodded, their determination clear. There was still fear, but now it was accompanied by confidence, the knowledge that they could face what came next. By afternoon, the distant hills seemed more alive with movement. Shadows shifted in ways that suggested more than just the wind, and the girls stiffened at the subtle signs. The rancher placed a hand on the taller girl's shoulder. "Be calm," he whispered. "We will handle this. Do not panic. Stay close, and trust me." That evening, the first real sign of danger arrived. Footsteps, faint but distinct, echoed across the dry earth beyond the fence. The rancher and the girls froze, listening carefully. The taller girl's eyes widened slightly, but she did not speak. The shorter girl gripped her companion's hand, seeking silent reassurance. The rancher nodded to them, signaling that it was time to act with calm and precision. He guided them into the small barn, a space filled with hay and shadows. "Stay quiet," he instructed. "Watch and listen. Remember everything I taught you. We are safe here, if we are careful." The girls nodded. Crouching low among the hay bales, the scar on the taller girl's arm felt heavier now, a reminder of why they had to be cautious. Yet she held her ground, silent and alert, ready to follow the rancher's instructions. Outside, the sound of footsteps grew closer. The rancher could see shadows moving through the fence lines, and he knew that the people pursuing the girls were testing the land, checking for signs of life. But he remained calm, guiding the girls with subtle gestures, teaching them how to move quietly, how to blend into the environment, and how to remain undetected. Hours passed, and the night deepened. The men outside eventually moved on, believing perhaps that the ranch was empty. The girls exhaled softly, relief washing over them. But they knew this was only the beginning. The danger had not disappeared, it had only been delayed. The rancher reassured them, emphasizing that courage, awareness, and trust were their greatest weapons. By the time dawn arrived, painting the desert in soft hues of pink and gold, the girls were exhausted but alert. They had faced fear, learned patience, and practiced vigilance. The rancher watched them with pride, recognizing the strength that had carried them this far. The scar on the taller girl's arm was no longer just a reminder of pain, it was a symbol of endurance and courage, a testament to what they had survived. As the morning sun rose higher, the three of them moved through the ranch together, stronger and more united than before. Danger still lingered beyond the hills, but they were ready. The girls had learned not just to survive, but to trust, to be brave, and to rely on the bond they shared with the rancher. And the rancher, in turn, had found a renewed sense of purpose, knowing that his life was no longer defined by solitude, but by the lives he had pledged to protect. For the first time in many weeks, perhaps years, the rancher felt a quiet confidence. They could face what was coming together, and as they worked, trained, and shared moments of quiet laughter, the desert, once a place of loneliness and danger, became a place of strength, resilience, and hope. The morning broke quietly over the ranch, the sunlight spilling across the fields and casting long shadows from the fences and animals. The rancher moved about with a sense of purpose that morning, knowing that the quiet days of learning and preparation had led to this moment. The girls were awake early, too, their eyes alert, their movements careful. The tension in the air was palpable, but it was tempered by the quiet confidence they had built over the past days. They had learned, observed, and prepared. Now, they would need every lesson they had been taught. The taller girl adjusted the sleeve of her shirt, hiding the scar that had brought them here, a mark that reminded them of danger and survival. The shorter girl followed closely, holding her companion's hand. Neither spoke much. Words were unnecessary when shared understanding passed silently between them. The rancher gave them a small nod, signaling that today, courage would be more important than ever. By mid-morning, shadows moved along the distant hills. The pursuers had returned, more determined than before. The rancher had anticipated this, having spent hours explaining to the girls how to observe without being seen, how to stay quiet, and how to respond calmly in case of confrontation. The footsteps grew louder, and the crunch of dry earth under boots became unmistakable. "Stay close," the rancher whispered, guiding the girls to a low spot behind a cluster of large rocks near the edge of the property. "Remember everything. We do not run. We observe. We wait. They will make mistakes, and we will be ready." The girls nodded, their faces serious, but resolute. The fear that had once held them paralyzed was replaced by careful awareness, a quiet bravery that came from knowing they were not alone. The men arrived, moving cautiously across the dry landscape, searching for signs of life. They were confident, perhaps overconfident, unaware that their quarry had already learned to see danger before it arrived. The rancher whispered instructions to the girls, reminding them to stay low, to remain silent, and to watch closely. Every sound, every movement, was analyzed. The girls followed his guidance perfectly, a testament to their determination and the bond they shared. Hours passed, the sun climbing higher, and the pursuers began to grow frustrated. They circled, searched the fences, and called out. But the ranch was empty of easy targets. The girls held their breath, hearts pounding, but their trust in the rancher steadied them. They knew that patience was their greatest ally. The scar on the taller girl's arm felt heavier in her mind now, a reminder of what they had survived but also a symbol of their strength. Finally, one of the men made a mistake. He tripped over a loose stone, a sharp clatter echoing across the dry land. The others froze, giving away their position. The rancher seized the opportunity. He led the girls along a hidden path through the rocks, moving silently but quickly. The pursuers, frustrated and angry, had no idea where they were going. The girls followed closely, guided by the rancher's steady hand, each step bringing them closer to safety. As they reached the safety of the barn, the rancher signaled them to stay inside while he created distractions. He moved quickly but quietly, using tools and equipment to create noises that misled the pursuers. The sound of a falling bucket, the rattle of a gate, a sudden clatter of hay, all designed to confuse and draw attention away from the girls. The taller girl's heart raced, but she remained still, trusting the rancher completely. Hours passed, and the sounds outside eventually faded. The men, frustrated and defeated, moved on, convinced that the ranch was empty or that their quarry had fled. The rancher waited a moment, ensuring that no one remained, before guiding the girls outside. The air was still, the danger gone for now, and the desert returned to its quiet, endless expanse. The girls exhaled, relief washing over them in slow, steady waves. They looked at each other, and then at the rancher, gratitude shining in their eyes. We did it," the taller girl whispered, her voice trembling slightly with emotion. The shorter girl nodded, tears welling up but unspoken. The rancher smiled faintly, feeling a warmth he had not known in years. "Yes," he said softly, "we did it. Together. You were brave. You trusted yourselves. And you trusted me. That is what kept you safe. That is what kept you safe. That is what kept you safe." The scar on the taller girl's arm, once a symbol of fear, now seemed different. It was a mark of survival, a badge of courage. It reminded them not only of what they had endured but also of the strength that had carried them through. They had faced danger, relied on each other, and learned that fear could be controlled with courage, patience, and careful thought. In the days that followed, the ranch returned to a quiet routine. But the bond between the rancher and the girls had changed everything. They worked together, laughed together, and shared stories of the past. The girls taught the rancher about their heritage, their customs, and the skills that had helped them survive in difficult times. The rancher, in turn, taught them more about the land, the animals, and life in the desert. They became a small, unspoken family, bound not by blood but by trust, respect, and shared experiences. The girls explored the ranch with curiosity, learning every hidden corner, every safe spot, and every secret path. The taller girl, who had once been shy and cautious, moved with confidence, her scar no longer something to hide but a part of who she was. The shorter girl laughed more freely, her eyes bright with the joy of safety and friendship. And the rancher, once lonely and resigned to a life of quiet isolation, found a new purpose in their presence. One evening, as the sun set in brilliant oranges and purples, the three of them sat together on a small hill overlooking the ranch. The air was warm, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of dry grass. The rancher spoke softly. "You've come a long way. You've faced fear and survived. You are strong, brave, and capable. Remember that, always." The girls listened intently, the taller one nodding slowly, her hand brushing over the scar that had once caused so much pain. The shorter girl smiled, her voice quiet but firm. "We have you to thank, sir. You kept us safe, and you taught us to be brave." The rancher shook his head, touched by their words. "No," he said gently, "you were brave all along. I only helped you see it. You trusted yourselves, and that is what matters most." The night fell, stars twinkling over the desert sky. The ranch was quiet, safe, and full of life. The girls slept peacefully, their trust in the rancher complete, and the rancher, sitting nearby, felt a sense of fulfillment he had not known in years. He was no longer alone. He had a family, not bound by blood, but by courage, trust, and shared experiences. The scar, once a reminder of danger and fear, had become a symbol of resilience, survival, and hope. In the weeks that followed, life continued at the ranch. Each day, a mix of work, learning, and quiet joy. The girls grew stronger, more confident, and happier, exploring the land and mastering skills that would serve them for the rest of their lives. The rancher watched them with pride, knowing that their presence had changed his life forever. They had come into his quiet world as strangers, frightened and alone. But they had become a part of his life in ways he could never have imagined. And as the sun rose and set over the vast, quiet desert, the rancher knew one thing for certain. Life had a way of surprising even the loneliest hearts. The girls had brought courage, laughter, and trust into his life. And in return, he had offered protection, guidance, and hope. Together, they had faced fear, endured danger, and come out stronger. The scar was no longer a mark of suffering but a symbol of endurance, a reminder of the bravery that could flourish even in the harshest places. The rancher, once lonely and resigned to the endless quiet, now looked out over his land with a sense of purpose and peace. He knew that challenges would come, that life could be unpredictable. But he also knew that together, they could face anything. The desert, vast and unyielding, had become a place of resilience, courage, and hope. And in that quiet, expansive world, the lonely rancher and the two Apache girls had found not only safety but a family, forged through trust, bravery, and the unbreakable bond of shared experience. The scar, the danger, the fear, all of it had led them to this point. And as the stars shone brightly over the desert night, the rancher smiled, the girls sleeping safely nearby, knowing that the story of survival, courage, and trust would continue for years to come. They had faced the worst and found the best, each other.